Do I think that they're going to go down to Amy Park and beat the Storm? No. Let's go the Storm, 1 to 12. Ooh, 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 what? 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 What's going on, guys? Burgz here from the Casual Athlete, back again for another week of tips and predictions. And this week it is round 21, and we had round 20 last week. And I will go through my tips from last week in just a moment. But what a weird weekend once again. Not a lot of upsets to go around. It seemed like the comp seemed to be settling down a little bit, considering all of the crazy upsets we had earlier on in the season, and that top 8 race is getting hotter than ever. But guys, if you haven't already, please make sure that you like and subscribe to the channel. We bring out so much content each and every week, and we can't do it without your guys' support. So if you hit that like button and hit the notification bell, you won't miss out on any of our latest content. Now let's have a look back at the week that was in round 20, and we started off with getting a loss with my Cowboys on Thursday night. And I've got to say, having conceded 101 points to the Dolphins in this competition so far this year, I can heavily say that I'm very disappointed in my Cowboys. Not saying that the Dolphins are taking anything away from the Dolphins. They are a much better side than us, and they've clearly shown it twice this year. And yes, there was a little bit of a comeback, but I think we need to start planning for the future. Maybe get some guys in that need to get a little bit of NRL experience ahead of next year, and just kind of throw this year down the drain. I think we need to start preparing and getting these guys ready to take on 2026. And we got the Sharks right, which is good. Then we got Panthers and the Raiders. Raiders clinging on to a victory there against the Eels. They were pretty easy wins, but the one that wasn't was the Bulldogs, and it took them nearly that whole second half to find a winning play, and it came from the man who has been the most heavily criticised man in the competition this year, and that is Lachlan Galvin, finding a miracle ball to the 19-year-old Jethro Rinakama to get the victory for the Doggies. But geez, don't they look dodgy heading into these final series at the moment. They're basically starting from scratch with a new halves pairing, and it could take some weeks for them to be completely confident in it. And the Storm was the big upset of the weekend. That was really the only upset. Manly getting the win down at Amy Park with a depleted team against a Storm side that was really only missing Ryan Pappenhausen. And I'm starting to think that maybe this Storm side are not the big juggernaut competition favourites that I think has been put on them by everyone else. They still have those holes from last year. They still can't win these big games. And yes, it was a contentious penalty that gave Manly the victory, but that has been a rule for a number of years now in the NRL. You cannot run through the kicker's legs, and Harry Grant, unfortunately, is the victim on this occasion. And the Storm go down at home to Manly. Wow. Manly, they are hanging in this top 8 race, and they are looking good to even make the top 8 at this point in time, with some decent fixtures coming up. The Titans, they just missed out by a point, and I've got to say, the carry-on from Sunia Taruva and some of the Tigers players after this victory was dead set embarrassing. It's like they had won the grand final. They'd beaten the Titans, the competition cellar dwellers, by 1 point. Let's ease up a little bit. I know Tigers fans haven't had much to cheer about in the last 3 or 4 years, but beating the competition wooden spooners at this point is nothing to celebrate. But they got the win, and that's what counts. Maybe I'm just a little bit mad that the Titans didn't get the victory on this occasion. And the Warriors, I cannot believe the end of that game. It was completely bizarre. Tanner Boyd missing some pretty easy shots at field goal, and then the charge down, and Leka Halasima. We've been talking about this kid on the channel for the whole season. He is special. I thought he nearly blew it with not passing the ball, but some of these guys, these young guys, I'm noticing a lot this year, aren't favouring the draw and pass, aren't passing to their open man. They are backing themselves. They have a lot of confidence. It cost Fletcher Hunt earlier in the game, but it didn't cost Leka Halasima on this occasion in the final seconds of the game. And we ended up with 5 out of 8 tips correct, guys. We go for a bit of upsets each and every week. You know me, I like my upsets. But again, as I said, there's not many going round at the moment. Last week was the same sort of story. This week, a bit similar with the one upset that really no one saw coming. If you tip Manly, good on you, but I had dead set think that no one would have tipped Manly against the Storm down at Amy Park. But 5 out of 8 tips correct, guys. I'll take that. But again, it's not enough to be putting myself in the top of these tipping comps this year. I did actually tip the Knights in another tipping comp that didn't really count, but yeah, I'm going a bit rogue on some of these tips, guys. But let's move on to round 21 and hope we have a bit more success this week. Okay, guys, first game of round 21 is at Allianz Stadium where the Roosters will be taking on the Storm. Now, the Storm come into this game on the back of a 5-day turnaround and a loss. And we all know how the Storm like to perform off a loss, but at the moment, I'm starting to think that this Storm side really aren't the prodigal sons that we're really being led to believe by all the media, all the analysts. They are not perfect, and Manly proved that last week, and that is the opening here for the Roosters. They should get Savala back for this game, and whether Ryan Pappenhausen decides to turn up and play in this one is a mystery. The calf tightness, I'm definitely thinking it was a calf strain at this point. He cannot be out for 3 weeks with calf tightness. Like, it's just not a thing. I'm sorry. I know a couple of people who are very close to Ryan Pappenhausen as well. I'm kind of asking around, seeing what I can find out for you guys. But yeah, it's not conducive to what we're being led to believe. Let's put it that way. I like the Storm in this game, though, especially off a loss, and they've also not lost to the Roosters since 2022. It's 6 games in a row now. They're going for 7 straight in this one. But night games seem to be their big issue this year. They have not been playing well in them at all. And I think heading into the finals, that's really going to be something they're going to have to address. It seems like they don't love the dewy weather, the bit of extra moisture on the ball. It seems to really disrupt the way that they play. I'm just really thinking that, the Storm could potentially beat themselves in this game, and the Roosters, they haven't been great the last couple of weeks, and losing to the Sharks really didn't help their case in terms of me tipping them for this game. But I've got to go with the Storm in this one, especially off the back of a loss. No doubt Craig Bellamy will have them extra trained, extra ready for this one against the Roosters. And unfortunately for the Roosters, I think it'll be 3 losses in a row in this one. So let's go the Storm, 1-12. Moving on to Friday night's games, and the Cowboys take on the Dragons at Queensland Country Bank Stadium in our first one, and it's 2 teams that I cannot tip at this point in time. Like, I don't like tipping either of these 2 teams at the moment, and the Cowboys are my own team. So, I think that tells you the kind of season that we are having at this point in time. There's a mountain of injuries that we currently have. Adding to that list, we have Murray Taulagi, who is possibly out for the rest of the season with a hamstring injury last week. And we do get a couple of guys back for this one. Jake Clifford will be available, whether we want to put him back into the halves and, chop and change that again. For me, it's getting to the point where we just maybe need to stick with something and play it out to the rest of the season, and then figure out stuff at the end of the season and heading into next season. I want to see guys like Jamal Shibasaki get a run. I want to see Anali Bittingani get maybe a run as well. Prep these younger guys for next season where they're possibly going to be fighting for spots. There's guys that are getting old at this point in time. Cohen Hess, Jordan McLean, Tamalolo. Is Tamalolo going to come back for this one? We don't know. As Cowboys fans, we don't know. And it's almost as if we don't want to know at this point in time. It's tough for me because the Cowboys actually have a great record especially over the last 5 games against the Dragons. They have not lost since 2021 to the Dragons. And we are at home in this game. Can we just, for the love of God, get a victory? I think are we on an 8-game losing streak, or we've won 1 out of our last 9 games or something? Just beat the Dragons. How hard is it? The Dragons made it definitely difficult for the Dogs last week, but I'm praying to the Lord above that the Cowboys can get a victory this week. Come on. Let's go the Cowboys, 1-12. Second Friday night game, and we're up at Suncorp, where the Broncos will return from the bye to take on the Parramatta Eels. Now, I thought the Parramatta Eels were spirited last week for long periods of that game, especially in the first half. They looked good against the Raiders, and in the second half, it was a shutout. The bounce of the ball did not go their way, and neither did the whistle. Like, that has to be addressed. I think it was a 10-1 penalty ruck infringements count against them in that game, and look, I'm feeling really sorry for Parramatta Eels at the moment. Riles has definitely changed the way I think we feel about the teams that get picked each and every week. He's clearly seen that, you know what, there's guys in this club that I want to get rid of and that I don't have any like future plans for. So I'm going to move them out of the team and play the guys that I plan to keep and move forward with each year, like that he wants to have for his tenure. And I like that attitude. And I think it's something that, as I've said with the Cowboys, that we should adopt. But they're getting a bit unlucky in terms of fixtures. Like this Brisbane team, looking pretty hot right now. They're Hansel. They're so hot right now. They're definitely in the race for a top four spot, Brisbane. And coming into this game, I don't really give the Eels much of a chance, as much as I'd like to, and as much as Moses potentially coming back into the side this week definitely gives them a boost. But again, he's going to be coming into a team where there's going to be no Dylan Brown. Like we're as Para fans, you guys have accepted that Dylan Brown is no longer going to be a part of this season, and Riles has made that decision as well. And it's going to be Moses' team moving forward. But I think this Broncos side will do enough to beat them. Let's go the Broncos, 13 plus. Moving on to Super Saturday, and we have the Warriors taking on the Titans in our first game over at Go Media Stadium in Auckland. And the Warriors, they got out of jail last week. Let's be honest, their young guys came to the floor once again. Dimitri Valmunga scored a try, and so did Lika Halasima. And that is not the first time this season that those two have scored tries. And I'm so annoyed that I didn't put them both into my rookies video at the start of the year. But guys, I will be doing a review on my rookies to watch for 2025, and yeah, we'll see how I went in that one, but that's for another video. Moving on to this game, we have a bit of an interesting one. Like, I think the Titans were unlucky last week. I think they did enough to win that game against the Tigers, and just their defense let them down again. And Jarrell Skelton scoring a try to even it up, Dewey kicking a field goal to win the game. Yeah, like, they're their own worst enemy. I think Campbell Gillard gave them field position with a penalty, a crusher tackle, and then they ended up losing the game by a point. And I thought that the Warriors were going to lose that game as well against the Knights. And Tanner Boyd, what can you say about him? Yeah, he's doing a decent job filling in for Metcalf. He's not the same kind of player, so they've had to adjust the way that they play. But yeah, they're just being they've gotten out of jail so many times this year, the Warriors. You wonder how many times can they do it. I think they do it again this week with the Titans captain going down last week in Tino, a fresh injury to him. That's not good for them. So unfortunately for the Titans, I think it's going to be another loss, and Des, basically you can kiss his job goodbye. Let's go the Warriors 1-12. Super Saturday continues with the Panthers taking on the West Tigers at CommBank Stadium, and now it's the second time that these two teams will meet at CommBank Stadium for this season. And there's a couple of different injuries to speak of. Whether Jareem Buller comes back for this game, although he was spotted in the members section at the Dogs game last week, so keep your eyes peeled in the news about him and what look that kind of presents for him and for the Tigers is a little bit of a mystery. There's been way too much talk about the Tigers this year, and they really haven't been able to get settled into any kind of rhythm to be able to play consistently for a longer period of time than a week or a couple of weeks this year. So I feel a bit sorry for them. In this game, though, they tend to make these games with Penrith quite close. I mean, there was the game in Bathurst a couple of years ago, which they won. Then earlier this year, they kind of got a little bit rorted, I thought, when Penrith maybe managed to eke out a 4-point victory. But I think this Penrith team, they're really coming into their own at this point in the season. Although Bryant Toto picked up a new injury last week, if he doesn't play, it makes it harder for the Panthers to play the way that they normally play. And then Liam Martin's also trying to come back from a wrist injury that he picked up during Origin. So there's a couple of outs for each team, but Cleary had a week off. Yo had a week off. I expect them to be nice and ready for this one. And unfortunately, I think it will be a Panthers victory, and the Tigers will once again, they got the monkey off their back last week, but it will jump right back on them after this loss in this game against the Panthers. So let's go the Panthers, 1-12. Super Saturday finishes up with the Bunnies taking on the Sharkies at Gosford, and the injury toll just continues to mount for the Bunnies, with Keon Koloamatangi getting a fresh ankle injury, which could end his season in last week's game. And the Sharks, on the other hand, they managed to get a good win against the Roosters, and there have been doubters on them this year, but they're starting to come into a little bit of form, you would say, heading into this final series, and that is exactly what they needed, considering the hype and the expectations that everyone had on them this year. I mean, I had them winning the minor premiership and then going on to win the comp just with the side that they have. But I think in this game, they're basically the victims or the inheritors of what is going to be a reserve grade Rabbitohs side that's going to trot out against them this week. I mean, the Rabbitohs, just going on the injury toll here, I'm on casualty ward. As we can see, it's not looking great. We got Latrell out, Campbell Graham still out, Ravalawa out, Bailey Bentley Harpy, Brandon Smith, Cam Murray, Keon Koloamatangi, as I said, Cody Walker out for the rest of the season. It's just horrible for the Bunnies, and no doubt their fans as well, who probably wanted to see a better season under Wayne Bennett than what has been happening this year. And you know what? It started pretty well, but it's not ending in the best way possible. And unfortunately, the injury bug hits you at the worst possible times. Let's go the Sharks, 13 plus. Moving on to the NRL's Sunday ticket, where we have the Newcastle Knights taking on the Canberra Raiders at GIO Stadium, and the Newcastle Knights will finally be away from home. I think it's maybe the first time in the last month that they will play a game away from home, and you got to say they were pretty hard done by last week. I mean, yes, they didn't clean up the charge down, and yes, they let Lika Halasima run 40 metres and score, but I think they did everything in their power or capacity to be able to win that game against the Warriors. It just sometimes the bounce of the ball doesn't go your way, and there's cries of unfair criticism coming from Adam O'Brien, but I honestly think that all the criticism placed on him is very fair. He's made some wild decisions in the last couple of years, basically playing or trying to play the whole competition without a proper halves pairing. I mean, like that's going on. That's been going on for years now, and there's talk about him potentially getting sacked, and I think rightly so. At this stage, I think Knights fans are wanting a little bit more out of their team, and I'm almost starting to think that maybe they're better off without Kalen Ponga. I think Gagai is doing an amazing job for how old he is to be playing fullback at this stage, but he looked a bit hobbled towards the end of the game last week, and it doesn't help them coming into this game against Canberra, who were a little dodgy, let's be honest, in that first half. They gave up a 12-point lead to Parramatta, and Parramatta looked the goods towards the 40-minute mark, and that second half was quite an arm wrestle until Owen Paddy, I would say, came onto the field with about 15 minutes to go, and he just broke the game open. Scored 2 tries, really injected some life into this Canberra side, which makes me kind of question why they've signed Jaden Brayley for next year. But in this game, I do think the Canberra Raiders will just continue on the same vein of form that they've been going on this entire season and get a pretty easy win here against the Newcastle Knights. The Newcastle Knights will try hard, and that is their MO, but they will not get the win against the Canberra Raiders. Let's go the Raiders, 13 plus. The last game of round 21 is the Canterbury Bankstown Bulldogs taking on the Manly Seagulls at a core stadium. And the Manly Seagulls should come into this game with a lot of confidence. They beat the Storm last week, and they have won 4 games in a row against the Dogs. And the Dogs are the dodgy dogs at this point in time. They're really tinkering with a few things, something that I have never seen a team in their position do. It's completely wild west for them right now. They got out of jail so hard last week. If not for Galvin coming up with a play that no doubt they have signed him for plays like that and to get them wins when the chips seem down. But for, let's say, 70 minutes of that game, it wasn't looking completely convincing. Um, and you've got to say, coming into this game, Manly will have the running of it. They should get Hamole Olakawatu back as well, and that can only help them coming up against a side that is really trying to find themselves. So I give Manly a big chance in this game, especially with the record that they have against the Dogs and the players that they have coming back this week. Hamole Olakwatu is a huge in. Like for the Seagulls, he's been their shining light this year. Hopefully, that shoulder is good to go. Um, I am really worried about the Dogs. Like they were such an exciting, effervescent team playing with a lot of, I want to say arrogance, but let's call it confidence. Um, Coming into this later half of the season, where they found themselves last year, they ran out of gas, but they're having a different problem this year, which is they've almost had to revert back to a more rudimentary style of play just to accommodate one player coming from a different club, and that is a completely different issue in of it itself. Like last year, it seemed like fitness and conditioning. This year, it's game plan and overall game style. Just adjusting to the way Lachlan Galvin's going to play. If it clicks, it can be phenomenal. If it doesn't, then they look like idiots and they're going to have to wait until next year and do a whole off season again to get themselves into this position again, which we know is hard to do in the NRL. So I kind of want to give the edge to Manly, but I think the Dogs will win this game, but it will be close. Make no mistake about that. Let's go the Dogs, 1 to 12. So guys, that's it for my tips this week. I hope you enjoyed the video. Let me know what you think about them down in the comment section below. Please make sure that you hit that like button and hit the notification bell and hit subscribe to make sure that you don't miss out on any of our latest content. And I'll catch you on the next one.